I really want to preface this video by saying that I love Australia. I really genuinely do. So much so that I gave 8.5 years of my life to the Australian Navy in protecting it. But I honestly don't know how any Australian is making it work right now in the country. We left the country because we couldn't afford to live in Australia anymore. And it breaks my heart to say that because it's almost embarrassing in a way that we couldn't hack it in Australia and we have to live in places like Malaysia to live the quality of life that we expected to have when we had kids. It's embarrassing in a way to say that. But Australia was slowly breaking us, not only financially, but just as a family. It was slowly pulling us apart. And that's what I want to talk about today, is a little bit about why we decided to leave and maybe give a little clarity to why we travel full-time as a family. So 2 years ago, we made the decision to pack all of our stuff up, sell everything that we didn't need, pack all of our stuff up into two suitcases and hit the road with the idea of maybe returning in a few years' time. It's been 2 years now and we have no intention of going back. And the reason for that is that we speak to my sister-in-law, my brother-in-laws, our family back home, and friends, and how they tell us how crazy the cost of living has gotten in Australia. And that is part of the reason we left. It wasn't the only reason, it was a big part of it. We were by no means poor. Between my wife and I, we were earning about $110,000 a year. We had a business that we were growing, and we were making ends meet, but just barely. It really felt like, even earning six figures, that we weren't getting ahead. We were just existing in Australia. We would pay our rent, which was $700 a week. We'd pay our food bill, we'd pay our electricity, we'd pay our water, our internet, and all our bills, and there'd pretty much be nothing left. And I can understand if we were only earning $30,000 or $40,000 a year and we felt like that. And I have a lot of respect for anyone that can make the ends meet if they're on the pension, because I just don't know how people are doing that in Australia at the moment. And I could understand if we weren't earning good money, but we were earning good money and it felt like we were going backwards. I would get up at 6 in the morning and I'd go to work and I'd come home, be home around 5:30, 6 o'clock, spend a solid hour with my children. They would go to bed. And that was our grind. That was our 9 to 5 grind. It literally felt like Groundhog Day every single day. Go to work, come home, spend an hour with the children, put them to bed, have dinner, sit on the couch for an hour, and then go to bed, and then do it all again. We were slowly dying inside because not only did I feel guilty about not spending enough time with the kids, I could feel them slowly detaching from me. Now, my wife would spend a lot more time with the children back when we were in Australia. She would drop them off at school, she would pick them up, spend a few hours. But I felt so guilty that I was working so hard to support them and support my family, for them to only feel like I wasn't there for them. Missing out on all the stuff that I expected to be able to do. Missing out on like being able to play catch in the afternoon because by the time I got home it was dark. Just things like that. And my oldest child has always been pretty close to me, and he's 9 now, but my 7-year-old, who was 5 at the time, I could see him physically detaching from me. I wasn't spending enough time with him as a dad. And because of that, I'd ask him for a hug and he'd be very hesitant to hug me. And that killed me. That killed me inside, because I knew that the reason that was happening is because I wasn't spending enough time with him. And I remember coming home one day in tears to my wife going, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this 9 to 5 grind without any chance of reward in the future. We didn't own a home. We had cars and a boat and stuff, but we couldn't afford to buy a home. The housing market was moving away from us. We couldn't save enough to get a deposit. And I just kept saying to my wife, like, why are we doing this? Why are we here? Why are we paying $6 for a carton of eggs? Why are we paying $5 for a loaf of bread? Why are we paying $6 for milk? Why are we paying all this when we have no chance of living the Australian dream? Why are we doing it? All that's happening is I'm spending no time with my children. My children are growing distant from me, and I sit there at my job going, why are we doing this? Like, why? Why are we just going through the meat grinder of the Australian cost of living crisis to achieve nothing? That's the way I felt about it. Now, that could be completely wrong and off, but that's honestly what it felt like. I felt like we were just being churned through a meat grinder of the middle class. But we also weren't going broke, admittedly, but we weren't getting ahead. And I just felt like there was no end in sight to that. I felt like I was going to wake up one day and be 50 and just be ragged, old, and broken with nothing. And I just don't know how any Australian is doing it right now, right? That's how I felt. So we made the decision 2 years ago to go, we are just going to check out of this. We are sick of the meat grinder 9 to 5 that we're grinding through right now. And we're going to go and travel the world, because at least then we'll get something tangible for that money. Lower our cost of living by living in countries where it's cheaper to live, and use the money that we have left over, save a portion of it, and get some experiences with our children and build some core memories with our children. That's what we decided. It took 6 months to transition into that lifestyle, admittedly, but 2 years later, it's the single best decision we've ever made as a family in our life. Not only have we been able to save money by living in countries that are cheaper than Australia, we've also been able to reduce our cost of living by half. We're also living a better quality of life for cheaper, because we're able to do things as a family. We're able to go out and go-karting and go to theme parks and stuff, because it's so much cheaper in these Southeast Asian countries to live. And the most important part is that we've been able to reconnect as a family, and we've been able to spend time together, which to me is the most important thing. Now, after 2 years, my youngest child, he doesn't push me away anymore when I want to give him a hug. He actively opens his arms up and goes, I'm waiting for my hug. You know, that to me means more than anything else. And really, for the first time in my life here in Southeast Asia, I just feel content. It's the first time really in our lives that we haven't had to worry about money. The money is there because everything is so much more affordable here for Australians that we just don't have to worry about money anymore. You know, if we buy a loaf of bread, it's like $1.50 here. If we buy eggs, it's like 15 for $2. If we buy takeaway, it's $20 for the whole family. As opposed to back in Australia, you'd spend $80, $90, $100 on a takeout meal. And we always intended to come back to Australia, but now we're second guessing that decision and going, is it even worth going back? Are we just going to end up back in that meat grinder and the mill and just end up back where we were, unhappy, not spending any time together, and just slowly drowning under the cost of living crunch? And I think that's, at the end of the day, the most important reason why we did it, is to reconnect as a family. But also, just like I said, I don't know how any Australian is making it work right now, honestly. After living here and seeing how affordable some of these other countries are, I don't know how any Australian is making it work, and why they're trying to make it work. Australia is a beautiful country, I get it. And Australia is an amazing country, and we're very lucky to be Australians, because obviously it's afforded us a lifestyle here that most Malaysians don't get. But how is anyone making it work? I don't know, but it's just something that I think about a lot, because I sit here and I go, we're living a pretty awesome life here at the minute, and it's half the cost of what it cost us to live in Australia. And I know there's a heap of families in Australia right now just struggling to make ends meet. And a little change in perspective about what's here in Southeast Asia, and a little change in like what's the priority, and maybe a little change in like what they do as a job, they could do what we did and like escape that. And you know, like I said, I don't know what the future holds. I don't know whether we made the right or wrong decision. All I know is that right now I'm the most content I've ever been in my life, because I have my family back, and I don't have to worry about what stresses most people out, which is money.